In this episode of Contracting Conversations, we're chatting about the future role of AI in the acquisition workforce. And guess what? The future is now. We'll learn more about how the new Intelex BOT can be a formidable foe in a simulated contract negotiation. And we'll discuss the fears over this new technology with Mr. Kingsley Martin. I'm Scott Williams, along with my co-host Jim Valley, coming to you straight from our booth at the NEXUS 24 conference in Jacksonville, Florida. We're in Jacksonville, Florida at the NCMA NEXUS conference, and I have the pleasure of talking with Mr. Kingsley Martin from Intelex, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what he had to present on AI.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome.
Yeah, we've been, myself and the Intelex company, we've been working on AI solutions around contracting for a number of years. In fact, way pre-AI. And for me, what was exciting about the technology, it all happened for me on November 30th, 2023. That was when we released GPT 3.5. I'd built up a lot of technology over the years, and I scrapped it that day. This technology is so incredible. Mm-hmm. And so the way we're using it, the way we're presenting it here, the first thing we're going to do in a little while is do an AI lab workshop. And we built a robot that you can negotiate with and negotiate against using various contract clauses. And you can either take the side of the buyer or the seller and see if you can beat the bot. Now, this will be the very first time that this is being used, so we're keen to see how it works.
That's really interesting. Now, is the bot program to come to a compromise agreement, or is it strictly a win-lose type of situation?
It will play multiple rounds, and at each round, each side can either accept it, in which case the negotiation is done. Gotcha. They can reject it, it's also done, you've come to no agreement, or you can ask the bot to revise it.
Okay.
It's going to tell you what the concerns of each party are, so you can understand why is it making those changes, and then it will propose those changes and create the red lines for you. If you like them, use them. If you don't, you can change them.
That sounds pretty exciting. I would have loved to have done that when I was a young contracting officer. That would have been great practice.
Yeah, what I find so interesting is that, there are many times I disagree, but there's equal number of times that it suggests something that I wouldn't have thought of. And that takes a vast amount of experience to think of all the possible permutations. And it's access to more data than I have in my head. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why I can propose things that I hadn't thought of.
So what does AI bring to the table? Since you've been in software, sounds like software development, kind of in the early stages or pre-AI. So what has AI brought to the table that has improved the experience?
I think we try and explain that with two different ways. The first, in terms of these two huge developments in technology, the first being the internet itself. Mm-hmm. And the way that I see that is that it gave me access to the world's libraries. GPT now gave me access to a really smart librarian who has access to the world's libraries. Mm. And that's really the difference, is that I always thought of it, the barrier was, I call it the creativity barrier. My father was a fighter pilot, who dealt with the sound barrier. The creativity barrier was actually creating something new. And that's really where GPT comes into play. In the past, we could only draw from existing data and present it to you in a way that maybe organized it so the most relevant stuff was first, but you would have to read and interpret it. Mm-hmm. GPT is purely creative. Actually, the very first test I gave it is write an indemnity clause in the voice of a pirate. It was good, it was funny, and it was clearly creative. Mm-hmm. So it's creativity. And breaking that barrier is something I always assumed was solely in the domain of humans. That's clearly not the case anymore.
So how do you envision the future will be with AI when it comes to something like what you're trying to develop?
Yeah, I think the future goes something like this, and we're doing this with one of our marquee clients, the Government of Canada. The first is we use the AI to try and simplify the whole procurement process. But then we also, at the same time now, we're collecting data. So we know with great detail about every single procurement, hundreds of thousands of them. Collecting that data then, the next stage would be to create a bot that would essentially act as an AI procurement assistant. But of course, where's the line? What's the line between the procurement assistant and a digital procurement officer?
Yes.
And so that's where I'm also very much concerned about, de-skilling people. They just become overly reliant on the AI, and it's obviously going to have a negative impact on jobs. But that's one area that I do think that there will be some jobs replaced, but there's huge opportunities. And in fact, that's one of the main areas that we're doing going forward. As a lawyer, I used to represent one client on one deal. Now what I do is essentially analyze all contracts, the entire portfolio. And the department that we currently work with in Canada spends around $22 billion to $25 billion a year. If we can use the portfolio analysis to save them a percentage, the point on every single one, the total is going to be enormous. And that's why I see that the new opportunity is in portfolio analysis as opposed to just individual contract review.
Yeah. Well, Kingsley, we've talked a little bit about responsible AI when we've done some previous podcasts on AI with our folks, and the future of how that responsible AI is going to be used in acquisitions or in procurement. And I know there's in DoD, and there's lots of potential. Now, there's certainly risks, and you cover some of that, but just the potential that's out there with AI as we move forward in government procurement and how it could be used.
Well, the problem with the good news and bad news is that the AI is very capable, but it's also a black box. We have no idea what it's, how it made those decisions. But what we do know is that in all likelihood, we fed it with biased data, current data. Current data is biased. So how do we make it essentially more transparent? How do we rein in also the hallucinations? Well, the only way to do that is to train it. So you're probably using AI to write a prompt. Really we need to give it really detailed data to essentially control the output and make sure, because that's one of the interesting things about the negotiation bot. Every time you use it, it's going to give you a different answer. A bit like asking, the old adage with law is that ask 3 lawyers an opinion and you'll get 4 back.
So it's learning, it's adapting through the negotiation process as it goes from step to step.
And what we need to do is that the technology has far exceeded the pace of the underlying infrastructure. We haven't built all of the security. One of the next big stages, which is happening, is that instead of putting it into the general public hopper, we will put it into very secure private databases, and that's the data we're going to poll.
Right, and you got the issue with proprietary information. Once you put it in the system, anybody can get access to it, right?
In theory. Essentially one of the differences between the different LLMs, if you're using a free version, you're almost definitely by default making your prompts and the information you give public. But if you have, in most cases, a paid subscription, will be by default private. Obviously, whatever you're putting in is going into a centralized server, but they're not sharing that with the LLM to train it. So in theory, someone could get that contract.
Right, and I think for DoD, that's a big security risk, and so they're going to try. They want to make it so it can't get outside that little.
There's a number of different ways to do it. Azure, obviously has a very close relationship with OpenAI, and they have, private collections that you can use. Mosaic ML, built by Databricks, has the same capability. So, as I say, the infrastructure is lagging the technology, as it often does.
Well, Kingsley, what would be a big takeaway that you want folks to get from your presentation here at the conference?
The biggest takeaway would be willingness to use an experiment. Now, whether they do it on their professional matters or their personal, the key to this is to learn how to use it. It's a brand new technology, and it's going to be instrumental to everything that we do. Personally, I use it for everything. I got a question, I will just write it into ChatGPT or another LLM and then just refine it. I just don't take the answer and run. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll give the response to another LLM and say, what do you think? I just hope they learn to use it and feel comfortable using it. Right now, we suspect that a lot of people, particularly on the government side, are banned from using it. So my takeaway, I really do hope that they get a chance to use it.
Try to open it up a little bit, be more open-minded, address some of those, maybe I would say fear is the right word, but address some of that upfront early, and then, like you said, start going at it. So.
And that's the reason why we're providing them with essentially our laptops that they can feel completely comfortable using. Hopefully that breaks down that concern, that worry barrier, and lets them just unleash the capability. It's an incredible system.
And see the potential, which is probably just
it's
off the charts.
It's great for the easy stuff that you could Google if you wanted
Yeah.
to, but you can have a conversation
Yeah.
with the bot. But even if those more complex things, if you want to plan a a vacation, and where am I going to go, and it would take a lot of effort for you to do that.
Well, for example, a good example of that one there, I use it to write code. I mean, I could go into Google and maybe I would get an example and then I'd have to adapt it to what I want. But I can tell the GPT, please write me Python code to do such and such.
Right.
And then the really neat thing about it, you run the code and it throws an error. You tell it, here's the error, and the LLM will fix it.
That's pretty incredible.
I mean, I'm blown away every single day by its capability.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and it's just growing exponentially.
Yes, yeah. I think what we'll see too is we're mostly focusing on general purpose LLMs. We'll see, domain-specific LLMs grow. And then maybe they will merge together. We've not seen the end of this development. I haven't personally, I've not experimented with the media side of it, write music, create videos. It is capable of doing that now.
I know we had a song written about contracting conversations, and it was actually really good.
We did.
Give me 4 verses or whatever.
Yeah. We used Jim as the lead singer on that one.
No. All right. We're good?
Yeah, I think so. But appreciate you stopping by.
Fantastic.
Yeah, what a great area to learn a lot about. And like I said, there's so much potential out there, and we're just starting to ride. Right? So there's a lot coming.
Indeed.
But thank you.
All right,
thank you very
for
much.
stopping by.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you for joining us on this episode. Please, if you could, smash the like button, subscribe to our channel. You can do that on DAU YouTube, DAU Media, DAU Media, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. And we will see you next time.